Middlegate House, building C96, is 1843, and let's have a better look at it. There we are, and the gates in front of it are 1846. It's originally called the Plumstead Gate. The gates are now closed. There are lots of photographs, postcards of people pouring in and out of these. Now we move further along the dual carriageway. As the dual carriageway approaches Woolwich, in order to make its way forward, it's had to go actually within the arsenal and demolish quite a few buildings. This might seem like a terrible loss, but the alternative might have been worse. The alternative was to run this road, this major road, Plumstead Road, along the riverfront, and it very nearly happened. It was going to be on stilts. It would have been running within a matter of feet at the side of the Greenwich Heritage Centre, if you've ever been in there. I think perhaps this is probably the lesser of two evils. This is what you would have seen at the end of the arsenal. Well, this is pretty much what Barclays bought after the arsenal closed. Middlegate House is visible in this. It's that little blob there. Most of the buildings here aren't still here. Those aren't. Those aren't. That isn't. That green one there isn't there either. Just about everything else you see here is still with us today. And we're going to go into the arsenal and we're going to look around them. These are really the historic parts. One more view of this from the riverside. Here we are. This is Royal Arsenal West, the package that was handed over through English partnerships to Barclay Group. And notice here, sand. Loads of sand with houses being built on top of it. So there you are, that's part of the Thamesmead development. That was part of the GLC's land. Now, nothing like sand. Have anybody got any buckets and spades, you know where to go. It's Thamesmead. Thamesmead Riviera. Right, some buildings here disappeared in this view. That one, the modern power station, the modern heating plant, that disappeared, and so did that building there. That was a building that was used for testing vehicles against the imperviousness to all sorts of things, including nuclear, biological and chemical warfare. So rather happily that's not there anymore. Just about everything else is still there, but not that building, not the shipping shed. That's gone. That's a shame. This shows our route that we're going to take through the historic buildings of the western core of the Royal Arsenal. This is the oldest part of the Royal Arsenal. There are many fine buildings in here. Our tour is now mainly architectural. This is the main gatehouse, just down here. And the road runs through the arsenal behind it. So the gatehouse is now severed. It's now isolated from the rest of the site. We'll then take this route to get us around all of the buildings. The only buildings that we will not see are this building here, which is a not particularly thrilling, well, it's thrilling to me, but it's a business centre. It's a business centre. And two buildings that I really should have bought photographs of, but unfortunately I have only one and it's not very good. These two buildings here, just in here, which are full-scale erecting shops with very large cranes in them. And they remain today as the Royal Ordnance Factory left them. They, I hope, will be around for very much longer. At the moment, Barclays use this one for storage, mainly of building materials for the area they're rebuilding here with modern blocks. And this building here is used, the only use of it in fact, is the occasional Woolwich farmers market. We'll see everything else. And we'll start off with that main gate and then across the road into here. The main gate. There are numerous photographs of the main gate. It's obviously the most photographed place in the arsenal because it's the only place that you really could photograph of the arsenal. You couldn't get in. You weren't allowed to photograph in there. You would have ended up in prison if you did. So anyway, that's what it used to look like. And this is what it looks like today. Worth giving the dates. I'm going to keep this in front of me now because I want these dates to be accurate. The main gate, as you see it today, was completed in 1891. But the original piers of the original gate are quite possibly in here. just these bits here. And it goes back time immemorial, very, very long time, since the arsenal began perhaps several hundred years. We'll go around this and we're going to cross over the main road that's been sent straight through the arsenal. And this is what we would have seen if that main road hadn't been built. This is part of Avenue H. This is what was lost when the main road was built. These buildings were accommodation for officers and also senior staff within the arsenal, the management. Very attractive row of buildings. Early Victorian, perhaps in some cases a little earlier than that. A real loss. They also included such things as the arsenal's morgue, the arsenal's surgery and the arsenal's theatre. Very nice garden as well. All sadly lost underneath that road in the early 1980s. So we cross the road, we go through the current gates and we see this. To our left, the Royal Brass Foundry. To our right, what's now the Dial Arch Public House, stretching right across it. These colour photographs you'll be seeing from now on are very recent and they were taken by Barclays for the original presentation. Turning to our right, we see Verbruggen's house. This was built for Jan and Peter Verbruggen, the Arsenal's second master gun makers. 1773. The predecessor, Andreas Schouch, the first master gun maker, got there a lot earlier, got there in 1717. The great thing about Jan and Peter Verbruggen is that one of them, and I think it was Jan Verbruggen, was a magnificent artist, a superb draftsman. It's hard, looking at his work, it's hard to realise that he wasn't actually using a camera to take the images. Tremendous work. And he depicted every single aspect of work in the Royal Arsenal, every single aspect of it at that time. They're very, very important paintings. They're now in the National Museum of the Netherlands. Right, immediately to our left, we will see the guardhouse. The guardhouse is seen here to good effect in the early 1970s. It hasn't changed at all, really. That's as it was in 2014. There has been an alteration since then. A large glass box has appeared here. And the reason that there is a large glass box is that this has just become a pub. It's only been open for about 2 months. It's called the Guardhouse, belongs to Young's. And the glass box is a restaurant. And I'm told it's very expensive. Even more expensive than the Dial Arch. But mind you, you get what you pay for. I've got no objections. It's very good. I treated to lunch in the Dial Arch on go. It was absolutely wonderful. Really good. Right, let's move on. Here we are, the star of the show. There are only 3 Grade 1 listed industrial buildings in South East London. Tower Bridge, Crossness Pumping Station and this, the Royal Brass Foundry. Built in 1717, it's attributed to Sir John Vanbrugh. And except for the coupler on the roof, it's exactly the same as it was when it was built. That's a later addition. It can't all have been Vanbrugh. This was a factory. It was a factory working at the very limits of technology of its day. It must have been designed largely, at least in part, certainly, by Andreas Schouch, the first of the master gun makers. And there it is, in an earlier era. This is actually 1885. Hasn't changed a bit, and you can see a little engine rolling around the corner for us. Walking further on, we see the Dial Arch, or as it used to be called, Dial Square, or sometimes called the Great Pile of Buildings. It was built between 1717 and 1720, and it's attributed to Sir Nicholas Hawksmoor, who was Sir Christopher Wren's Clerk of Works. It was a quadrangle. 3 sides of the quadrangle have gone. This side remains. It's not listed. There's not enough left of the original for that. Very historic building nonetheless, and again, Schouch would have had a lot to do with this because it contained absolutely state-of-the-art engineering equipment for turning those brass gun barrels, smoothing them off, getting them ready for a service. It was driven by a central horse drin in the middle of the quadrangle, and all the drive was transmitted by shafts through bevel gears, which were all underground in little brick tunnels. Very advanced thinking for its day. There's another view in its later days with the military. Unfortunately, it's looking a little bit worse for wear there, but eventually it was fully restored. Here it is as it is today. There is unfortunately a modern block of flats behind it, which might or might not fit it, but I do know some people who live in there and they say it's a very, very good place to live. Let's look inside. Very nice. Young spent over £1 million fitting this place out, and it looks like it. It's a great pub. I can't criticise it actually. But when you sit in the Dial Arch, what are you sitting on top of? The Museum of London did an exploration in this area, some really serious archaeology, not just in front of the building here, but all the way around it, and other parts as well. And what they found was a very large number of graves. It's a Roman graveyard. That's what it is. That's what was there first, long before the arsenal got there. Right, let's continue on our little trip going northwards, and we would have seen this sorry remnant here. One of the two pavilions of New Laboratory Square, built in 1696. Let's have a look at a slightly later period. This is after Barclays had moved in. It's now, no it's not, it's just before the army, just before the military sold it. You can see it's now really falling to bits. It's not in too good condition at all, but things do improve. This is what it looks like now. You can't actually go into it at the moment because there's a hoarding in front of it. When the area between the two pavilions, the other one is behind this, was roofed over in 1854, it became the largest machine shop factory floor in the world. Had no rival. Both 1696, they are the oldest industrial buildings, purpose-built industrial buildings in the Greater London area, I believe. Not absolutely certain on that, I stand to be corrected. We're going to turn right.
Malcolm Tucker says they are.
They are. Then it is. Thank you very much. Thank you. We turn to our right and we see the northern side of the Royal Carriage Department, which was built between 1802 and 1804. And behind it, this big serrated top up there, made out of corrugated iron. Today, it looks like this. The corrugated iron has been replicated by flat metallic surfaces. The rest of the building has been restored, partially as a gymnasium and partially as small houses as part of Barclay Homes redevelopment. We'll turn up that road there and have a look at the other end of it. Gives us a better view. Here we are again. We can see this great big corrugated iron appendage on the roof. The reason that is there is because when it was built, this building was mainly interested in woodwork, gun carriages, cartwheels, that sort of thing. This sort of thing really was out of favour by the end of the First World War, and so in the mid-1930s it was converted into a machine shop, general purpose assembly area, and that required the use of a series of very large gantry cranes. These needed to be covered up, and that is their covering. That's why it's there today. And that's the same view today, with that grey corrugated iron replaced by grey steel-clad buildings. Right, I think it's time to take our bearings after we've seen this building. Here again is the Royal Carriage Department, this time from the front with its rather nice clock. The clock was sadly very badly vandalised some years ago, but Barclays spent a fortune with the firm in Bradford restoring it. Here is the view today. The clock is now working again. It's no longer worked by two weights going down into wells beneath it. They again prove that this is a marsh. Those wells were full of water. It's now electrically powered. Let's have a look inside it. And there you are, those are the giant crane runs inside that big corrugated iron box. They here have got brick air raid precaution works. That's what they are, to try and protect the area just in case it gets bombed. And now a look at what it's like today. There we are. Not so bad, perhaps. Okay, let's go outside and take our bearings. We've now arrived here. That's where we are. So Just about halfway through. Don't worry, it won't take long. Right, we turn around, here we are, building C1. For my money, the finest surviving industrial building in the Royal Arsenal. Built in 1886. It was built very rapidly because its predecessor fell down. It fell down due to weight of snow on the roof, and the Illustrated London News caught the scene. Here we are, crane runs within, very similar to the ones that are there today, lots of corrugated iron lying all over the place. Let's go inside the current building. This building is magnificent, it's still got its cranes. The cranes aren't visible in this shop, well just one about there, 5-ton direct current power. There is currently no electricity in the building, so there is no lighting anymore. It's also been shot blasted on the inside, so all the brick is now nice, clean London stock brick, but the crane runs and all the metallic components and the roof are still in their original finish. One more from in here. Here we are again. I would suspect that these colours might easily be the colours that the building was built with. It is a wonderful building, it really is. And at the moment, I asked somebody from Barclays quite recently what they thought they might do with it. They didn't seem particularly certain. There were thoughts for cinema, perhaps. But thankfully, it doesn't look as if it's going to be converted into housing. Make a good museum, wouldn't it? Right, turn around. The central offices. 1903 to 1910. Still there today, but now with the addition of an extra 3 stories. And we'll go around the other side of it now. Very similar. Nice 86-inch wheelbase Series 1 Land Rover. And over there, on the right-hand side, a rather ornate and special-looking building. We know that this photograph must have been taken after about 1970, because the building that was here has gone. We'll show you just about what came after it. There we are, that's it, the Shell Foundry Gates. Very, very attractive little building. Designed in 1856. And the gentleman who decided it wasn't an architect, he was an engineer. Let's get his name. Determined to have it. Can't find it. Oh no. Fails again. Here we go. I really should remember this. It's David Murray. David Murray, because he did so much work in the Arsenal. Should have known that. I've given walks around the Arsenal, never had to refer to any notes. The building behind it, the Shell Foundry, was demolished. All that was left was this. There's the last remaining little bit of the Shell Foundry there. The building behind it is the Royal Air Force's Secure Signals Unit, a very, very secure building, very, very highly confidential work. That transferred there from RAF Kidbrooke in around about 1970-71, something like that. Better look at it. There you go, it's got its original gates back. The gates were originally taken to Royal Ordnance Factory Patrickcroft in Lancashire when the Arsenal closed down, but thankfully the Arsenal's last chief superintendent, Sir Sidney Bacon, managed to get them back. In return, there is a plaque to ROF Patrickcroft on the floor just inside. Quite a large piece, nice piece of ironwork actually, that. And this is the inside. That's it, the plaque to ROF Patrickcroft, thanks them for looking after those gates, is just there. This is the foyer, this is now a block of flats, and this is what the block of flats looks like inside. This is fairly typical of the sort of work that Barclays do. And another one of this. There we are, not bad. I'll give them a fiver. Okay, we're on top of the central offices now, and we're looking down on the Shell Foundry gates here, and this is the beginning of the work that Barclays did. This gives you some indication of the amount of infrastructure that had to go into the western part of the Arsenal to turn it into a residential area. Whilst an awful lot of people worked here, they didn't all have washing machines, they didn't have dishwashers, they probably didn't have showers. So you need an awful lot of drainage. Tremendous amount of money went into this when it was rebuilt, and I'm not absolutely certain that Barclays would have made a profit out of it yet, but they would have done in the end. Okay, outside we come to this magnificent building. This is the Grand Store of 1802 to 1804. A wonderful building. It is reckoned to be the finest Georgian warehouse in the British Isles. It may well be the best one in the world. It is now all residential, and it proves that this area is a marsh. There are actually quite significant cracks in the outside of the building, which have now all been filled up, but if you look at it carefully, you can see that it's like this in places. It's actually floating away quite nicely. The trees are very old. There's photographs of those trees taken in the late 1870s. They are the same ones. They used to line this side of the road as well, but they were removed for the extension of the Royal Arsenal Railway when it went over to standard gauge in this area. I'm going to tell you who did that. Who is it? I don't know. I don't know who did it. I didn't write it down. Okay, well, let's go on anyway. Here's the other end of it. Here we are. One of the end pavilions. There was another one of these here. It was demolished to make way for the Arsenal's power station in 1907. You go inside it, that's what it used to look like. It is a three-sided quadrangle. With Victorian infill. These buildings here, these two buildings here, actually only date from 1890, but they are still there today, and they too have become residential. And this is the view today.
James Wyatt and
James Wyatt.
And his nephew.
Yes, good. Thank you, James Wyatt. Right, good. I should have remembered that, but I just had so much to absorb when I was putting this together earlier. I just can't remember all of it. Right, okay. We're going to go back and have a look at where what was the power station. No, we're not. We're going to have a look at the Armstrong Gun Factory. The Armstrong Gun Factory. This is just opposite where we were. This was designed by David Murray as well. It was designed for the manufacture of a revolutionary new type of gun, designed by Sir William Armstrong. It was a wrought iron prefabricated gun. It allowed very much larger guns to be made than with cast iron, and very much larger charges of propellant to be put inside them. It's got a remarkable survivor on the side of it, the last of the Royal Arsenal's emergency telephones. There would have been hundreds of these at one time. It's still here, police, fire and ambulance telephone, and up at the top it's still got its little blue light bulb, which presumably flashed when somebody made a phone call. Turn around. Oh no, we don't. Here we are, Armstrong Gun. That's an Armstrong gun in front of the Armstrong Gun Factory. Very nicely posed photograph, that. Very well-known one. Apologies if you've seen it before. Right, now we will turn around and we see what was there. The Arsenal's power station of 1907, and in front of it building some very typical Board of Ordnance prefabricated ironwork construction. Now this was way after the Board of Ordnance had gone. That went in 1855, but it was such a good form of construction that it continued to be used for a very long time. The Arsenal had acres of it. There's not very much of it left now. We'll see it later on. That's what it looks like today. Not so much fun, eh? But again, I'm told by people who live in it, a very nice place to live. And that's the interior of it, its own pool. And we'll go round onto the riverside, which it faces over. And here you see, beaming out over the River Thames to tell everybody how important this establishment is, Oil, Arsenal, but don't worry, I checked, the light bulb had gone, or the lighting had gone, and they had to take the R down, just when I was taking the photograph of it. But anyway, it's back now. Right, we're going to now walk along the Thames, along the Thames towards the Greenwich Heritage Centre. And I just had to show you this, a photograph taken at roughly this point, from no idea when, but a very, very long time ago. And there you are, the Arsenal in the days of cast iron guns, cannonballs and whatever. A real blast from the past. Let's keep going. Right, this building, right at the other end of the grand store, it's got on top of it a hydraulic accumulator tower. And here we see it, after the Arsenal was closed to manufacturing, being rebuilt on the top floor as a social club. The building to the right, pretty modern construction as you can see. That will play a part in the story of this building as we will see. This is what it looks like now. The modern top has gone, being replaced by something even more modern. And the building at the right has gone. But, or has it? Going inside that building that's demolished, we see that it's made out of lots of cast iron columns, very fireproof building, very strong building, not for some reason or another suitable for conversion into accommodation. And here is the interior on the exterior. The hydraulic tower is just here, and these now form the original interior of the other building now forms an access into this building here. A nice reuse of old materials. Back along the riverfront, here's the shipping shed on the left, the last one of the two shipping sheds by this time. Here's one of the little guardhouses, I think they're about 1816. And behind it, the building that is now the Greenwich Heritage Centre. It was originally New Laboratory Square. These have gone. Now, these have gone, but they are very, very well recorded from the point of view of industrial archaeology. That information is held in the London Metropolitan Archives, and I feel that the reason for that might be was that this is where the motorway was going to go, and therefore the GLC did a particularly good job recording the interior of that. Had some good hydraulic cranes and hoists inside it, sadly no longer with us. That's the same view today. A little bit prettier perhaps, with the Arsenal's new pier. Underneath that pier is the original Watergate area, still got Georgian stone steps on the riverside of the wall. New Laboratory Square, the building which most people will now know as part of Firepower and part of the Greenwich Heritage Centre. The Mock Tudor extension dates from the 1920s. The rest of the building was built over an immensely long period of time. It was started in 1810, and the two sides that you can see here, the north and east ranges, both do date from 1810. But the rest of the building wasn't finally completed until something like 1890. A very long period. During the First World War, this was used mainly as a bullet factory. It was also used as a carpenter's. There used to be a chimney in the middle of it, and there was a printing shop just behind. That's the view today. The railway line in the foreground has gone. The little guardhouses for the Watergate are still there. Not entirely unpleasant. We'll now walk up here, back towards the main gates. In fact, you can just see the cupola of the Royal Brass Foundry there, so we know we're nearly back. Turning around, looking back at this building, you'll see why sometimes it's called the pedimental building, because of the pediment on the top. You can see here various 20th century accretions on the outside of it, which have now gone. That's the view today, and here we see some of the Board of Ordnance's rather pleasant prefabricated construction here. It's very, very practical and pleasant type of iron frame building. Whether the tank will stay after firepower goes, I do not know. It's not a tank actually, it's a self-propelled gun, but mustn't split hairs. Here we go. Right, the last building we'll be looking at today. This is the originally Tower Place, the mansion that owned this area, and it was knocked down and rebuilt by Sir Nicholas Hawksmoor, possibly on the original foundations. Can't be certain about that, but it is nonetheless a very old building, a very important building, and that building to the right, the ground floor over there, which you can't see here because of this thing, was once the boardroom of the Royal Laboratory, one of the three great departments of the Royal Arsenal. That building there, that room there rather, that room, all on its own, was the Royal Military Academy. It's a little bit bigger than that now. Here we are, today's view. The accretions have gone. The building is now much more clearly visible. I must say that I've never liked it. It doesn't look like Hawksmoor to me. I know that he did it. A lot of people thought it was Vanbrugh at first, but it's now proven to be Hawksmoor. But it's a very strong building, isn't it? It doesn't have any delicacy about the thing at all. I really ought to tell you when that was built, and I should know this again. It's going to be about 1720, and it was 1720. I'm amazed. I was right. Okay, one more view of this. There we are, 1885. What's now the Greenwich Heritage Centre with its nice cast iron fabricated structure is still there. Another very similar building is over here, but an even better one. It's got a very nice ornamental frieze along the top of it. It's a very highly posed photograph taken for the Royal Laboratory Department. I don't know why they did it. I think they really wanted to show off that railway locomotive. Right. Oh dear, I must nearly be at the end. I think I am. Now, we've got a railway locomotive in front of Tower Place, which is what everybody still calls it. And there's another one. Who's that? Anybody recognise that person? Well, I recognise that person, but I'm looking in the opposite direction, so it's easy for me. That's one of the Arsenal's former locomotives. It's called Woolwich. It's currently at Crossness Pumping Station being restored. This is in 2011. And just to finish off with, my word, what's happened to the colour? It's all, I don't know what colour it is now, but it wasn't supposed to be that colour anyway. Right, we've got to the end. We've got right through all the remnants of the Royal Arsenal. Maybe this surviving locomotive represents the future. There's actually a lot of equipment lying around the country in all sorts of places from the old Royal Arsenal Railway. This is probably the most famous example. The Royal Arsenal has closed its doors when firepower goes for possibly the first time in nearly 500 years. There will be no military presence in the Royal Arsenal. But the Royal Arsenal, of course, did not absolutely disappear. It never became close to disappearing. It actually got stronger because it has spawned two great companies, Royal Ordnance Factories and what's now called Kinetic plc, which is the Arsenal's research and development department in part. The Arsenal was one of its foundations. The Royal Ordnance Factories are now part of British Aerospace, and they're called Global Land Combat Systems. Not that long ago, Global Land Combat Systems actually decided to give a home to the archive of the Royal Arsenal Woolwich Historical Society. And the people from the highly secret and unmentionable armaments factory that they're employed at were absolutely thrilled. There is no two ways about it. They still consider themselves to be Arsenal employees, even though they work a long way from here. And very tellingly, during the First World War, the Royal Arsenal produced 1.6 billion rounds of small arms ammunition. At the beginning of the First World War, it was the only source of small arms ammunition for the whole of the British Empire. One of the many Royal Ordnance factories that the Royal Arsenal designed in-house in 1916 was at Radway Green in Cheshire. Radway Green is now the world leader in the manufacture of military small arms ammunition, and by a significant margin. It was completely rebuilt a couple of years ago, and the new building was reopened by the Princess Royal. As he was introducing her, the managing director of that factory started with the words, "We came from the Woolwich Arsenal," which I thought was really quite appropriate. And now we are going to leave the Royal Arsenal. There is the outside of the gatehouse and its plaque, or just its plaque. It carries the arms of the Board of Ordnance and a very, very appropriate motto indeed. Sua Tila Tonanti, to the warrior arms. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for putting up with me.